Right, good evening everyone. I'll start with a sound check. Can everyone hear me at the back? We'll get the house rules out the way first. Basically, the fire exits are directly behind you and directly behind me. So that's that part done. Good evening. Welcome back to Portman Road. Welcome back to the Sir Bobby Robson Suite for our first fans forum of the 25-26 season. I think before we start, we should put our hands together really for Fabio Wardley. Of course, some of you might have been at his fight in the summer, a memorable occasion, but just recently beat Joseph Parker at the O2, and now we're talking about the WBO World Heavyweight Champion from Suffolk, from Ipswich. So personally, I think that deserves a round of applause. Yeah, back to this evening. My name's Jacob Henderson. I work in the media department here at the football club. And tonight on the panel, we have Chairman Mark Ashton, Manager Kieran McKenna, and Majority Shareholder Ed Schwartz. I'm pleased to say that we also have the Fan Advisory Board in attendance. You may have seen the details on the screens. And if you'd like to speak to them or a member of staff after the forum, please do. They can be contacted on fanadvisoryboard@itfc.co.uk. I think this evening's forum is a good chance for you guys to talk and ask questions about what really matters to you. All three men sitting to my right, set very high standards and have very high aspirations for this football club. So while it's lovely to reflect on the years that have been and the success of the past few seasons, I think it's important to use this next hour to really talk about what you actually care about, the present and the future. Because Mark, Kieran and Ed are all willing to answer those questions. So let's crack on, take some questions from the floor. We have a few online from emails and from social media as well. You'll see Brandon, who is at the back with the microphone. He's going to take that round, and when you have a question, if you're able to, please stand, introduce yourself, and then who you'd like to ask a question for. So shall we get started? Who's got a question from the floor, please? Just up here, Brandon, a few rows on your right.
I have one for Kieran. With Alex Barnard coming back shortly and Bolton being very good, what is your idea going to do with them?
Good evening, everyone. Straight into it. 2 goalkeepers, possibly. Would be, yeah. Look, we want to have good players competing in each position, and we got 2 really good goalkeepers there with Dave Button as well, who's been a really good support, and 2 good goalkeepers out on loan as well. So I think that's a healthy place to be as a football club. Alex has started the season, pretty solid, and then has picked up his injury. And Christian, as we know, has been an important player for us over the last few years and had to wait patiently, and he's done well since he came in the team. So look, Alex isn't back fit yet. Christian's got the shirt at the moment. He's performed well for the team, and that's exactly what we'd want. 2 good goalies competing, and we'll hopefully have them both back fit soon, and we'll make whatever decision we think's best.
Thank you, Kieran. We'll go to another question on the floor, just a couple of rows behind you, Brandon.
Yeah, hi, Adrian Barnes here. Question for Mark. With the phasing out of PSR next season into the Premier League, with the potential changes, how is the club geared up for that, in the hope that we are up? And have you got to change our model at all?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. The answer to that is we've been fully aware of the potential implementation of new financial rules for about a year. We sat in the Premier League. We understand those rules. We comply with those rules. And we're still, I think all the clubs await the finer detail of those rules, but be under no illusion we will be compliant, and we fully understand them.
Thank you, Mark. We'll stay with the floor. Anyone else with a question, please? One on your left there, Brandon.
Thanks. My name's Jeff. Evening, gents.
Hi, Jeff.
I'd like to ask Kieran and Mark, according to the bookies and those in the know, we'll be promoted back to the Premier League next season. And hopefully we will, either by top 2 or by the playoffs. And let's hope they're right. What are the things that you've learnt from the last promotion campaign and the season in the Premier League that will assist you in having a better season back in the Premier League next time?
Yeah, let's hope the bookies are right. And they usually, well, I don't know if they usually are. They weren't the last time we got promoted. It was against the bookies' odds. So hopefully they're right this time. Look, I think and it's not to broad stroke the question, but we've learned so much. I think as a football club, first and foremost, when you've not been in the Premier League for 22 years, that's a completely different world. I've been in it as a coach before, so I feel like I had a fairly good idea. But the league changes every year and gets stronger every year, and the Premier League now has gone, for me, way, way, way and beyond every other league in world football. So you're not talking about the best league in England. You're talking about the absolute pinnacle of world football. So, of course, that brought a lot of challenges, and it will hopefully bring a lot of challenges as and when we can get back to that position again. But I think I can certainly speak from every department at the training ground, whether that's coaching side, squad, medical team, analysis team, recruitment team. I think we are now stronger in every single position than we have been previously. And if we can hopefully continue and build good results and get to where we want to get to, I think we'll be in an infinitely stronger position with what we have in the building already. And then I think we know going up, if we manage to achieve another promotion, then we know that we're going to have to push and improve again. And we know a lot more recently what that level looks like. And where we are now, for me, is stronger in almost every department at the training ground than we've been previously over decades at the club. But we'll have to push again, and we'll have to, recruit again to be stronger. We'll have to improve in every department. So I don't think it's necessarily one thing. I think it's the jump from League One to the strongest league in the world by far in 2 seasons was, we know by the end outcome, too much. I feel like we competed well for a lot of the season, but ultimately we want to be back there again, and we want to be there to stay in. I think we can and we will be much stronger in every area.
It's a good answer. It's a really good answer.
Mark, that was a question, of course, for the two of you. How would you follow that up?
I think Kieran's nailed it. The one thing no matter how much money that we could put at it, we couldn't buy time, and time felt like it was always against us. I've said this before, to go back to back and not to be able to put the infrastructure projects in place, whether it's the training ground, the analysis team, the recruitment, the performance team. I think Kieran's answer is spot on. At the end of the season, even though we were relegated, we sat down and as Kieran said, we needed to go again. So the departments weren't cut back, the departments were bolstered, and we went again. But Kieran is right. We have to be more effective in every single area of the football club, both at Portman Road and at the training ground, because we know it is the toughest league in the world. And no matter what you do, you could always argue you're not going to be ready for it. But we've got to be in a better place to be more competitive over the whole season.
Well, someone that I'm sure will echo that is you, Ed. And of course, you've flown over just for the Fans Forum tonight. Let's bring in a question that came in through email for you. Ed, is the ownership group as invested as they were at the beginning? And when they say the beginning, I think they mean, the takeover in 2021.
Right. It's funny, and I'll kind of echo what Kieran and Mark said in the last question, and that when you're building something great, when you're building something world class, it's not always a complete straight linear progression. And we had so much success so quickly, but as Mark alluded to, the infrastructure really wasn't there to support the success we had. So we have learned a lot, but we also have had more time to build the infrastructure that will support us as we continue to progress. So even though from an ownership perspective, you may look and say, oh, well, we were in the Premier League last year, now we're in the Championship. I look at where we are now, and we're much stronger. We're much stronger. Our foundation's much stronger. We have a Cat 1 academy now. We have improved our recruitment staff, our processes, our procedures. All the things have improved in a way that we think that, as we said from day one, we're not looking at this in the short term. We're looking to build something that has long-term sustainable success. So I would tell you from the beginning, from day one, we're happier now than we've ever been as an ownership group, and more committed, more excited about our future, both our present and our future. And I just want to say I feel very blessed to be able to work so closely with people like Mark and Kieran and the entire organization. So we feel really, really, really pleased.
Thank you, Ed. Let's go back to the floor. Plenty of hands. Brandon, do you want to pick maybe the one just on your right there?
Good evening, gentlemen. I think you've already touched on it a little bit in terms of how we were far from the bookies' favourites the last time we were in the Championship for promotion. Fast forward 2 years and we were the overwhelming bookies' favourites at the beginning of the season. I just would be interested in some insight from your perspective, from all three of you, in terms of how that's looked, being the hunted instead of the hunter all of a sudden, and kind of the additional pressures that brings upon us.
Yeah, of course it's different. I've said before and have been asked about it. I don't think it's unique because I think it has some similarities to when we were in League One, to be honest. And, the club were in League One before I arrived and was probably favourite a lot of those years. But even when I arrived, we were a big club at that level and were, seen as having a good squad and all of those things. So I don't think the challenges are unique. There's no two ways about it. You know, you can feel it every weekend that the opposition are very, very motivated to play against you. The opposition supporters, players, staff, managers have seen the journey that the club have been on, and it's an incredible journey, and I'm pretty sure a journey that they would all want their club to go on. So a chance then to have Ipswich come to their stadium or come to this stadium is a really, you know, a game that their motivation is really, really high. And teams are working really, really hard to stop us and try and stop us playing the football that we want to play. And there's a lot of different ways we can go through that one. For example, in terms of a number that's pretty simple to understand, the ball in play time of our first 10 games in the Championship this year was under 49 minutes, was 48 minutes. The last time we were in the Championship, it was 57 minutes. Now, that's not just some do the math, 9 minutes of difference in the times. That's a stoppage and a stoppage and a stoppage and a stoppage right through the game. And that's only, you know, one number, but it's symptomatic of the fact that when you're perceived to have a strong team or be a club that have had a fantastic few years, then teams are going to make it difficult for you. And that's certainly been the case, and that'll continue to be the case, and we have to overcome that. What I say to the players and what I say to everyone is I think we'd rather be in this position. I think we'd all rather be in a position where we're in of course we want to be in another league, but we're in one of the best leagues, one of the most competitive leagues in Europe. We have one of the best squads, we have one of the best stadiums, one of the best fan bases. We have a fantastic group of players and staff, and every week we go out trying to be the dominant team and trying to win games of football. That's not a bad place to be. There's worse places to be. It's different than being the team at the bottom or a team who nobody cares about. It's, you know, I think we would all rather have that. So let's embrace that challenge. We're trying to do that. We're trying to keep improving the team, trying to overcome the challenges of the Championship, which is already really, really tough for everyone, but also being a team that teams want to beat in the Championship. That's a big challenge, but it's one that we got to take on. And as I said, to be honest, it's one that I want us to enjoy being a team that, you know, are there to be beaten, and teams want to stop, and we have to, you know, show our power and find ways to get the outcomes we want.
Mark, would you have anything to add to that one?
No, I think Kieran's nailed it again. You know, as the gentleman said, there is a transition to being the hunted. But, you know, as a football club, we've reset. We've all sat down. We've talked about that. We've talked about the challenges. We've talked about the challenges we're going to face on the pitch, off the pitch. You know, there cannot be any area or feeling of entitlement. We have to earn every inch on and off the pitch, and we have to keep moving forward. In this game, in this league, if you don't move forward and you don't move forward at pace, the competition will go past you. And other clubs, I think, have seen that over the years. You've seen clubs fall out of the Premier League and gone right the way through. You know, we had a lot of work to do in the summer, big overhaul, and I think it's a huge credit to Kieran and his staff, because that takes time to settle. That's a huge cultural change. It's a huge personnel change from where we were, both on and off the pitch. And I think now, for me, you're starting to see the fruition of Kieran's work come through again.
Kieran, that probably links into a question that we've picked up on Facebook that was talking about that level of change in the summer and last summer. How important are the players that have been here for a few years now in maintaining culture and standards around particularly the training ground?
No, of course they're important. So yeah, look, I think of course we know that we've had a big turnover of the squad, and some really, really important players have left over the last 12 months for different reasons, and you know that leaves a void to fill. So it's great to still have, someone said Christian Walton. I'm trying to think who was here when I first arrived. Wes Burns, who's almost back fit, which has been really good, and then people like Leaf and George Hurst, who sort of joined us pretty early or earlier on in the journey. So it's great to have them, but to be honest, I think we have to go past putting the expectation and the support on them to be the leaders. I think it has to be everyone. It's brilliant to have boys who are here on the journey and have been with us. And you know, again, as I said, we've lost a few important ones, but we have a new group of players who are just as motivated to do well for themselves and for the club. And I think it's about whether you've joined this summer or last summer, or you were here when you're in League One. For me now, it doesn't matter anymore. It has to be as a new team, as a new group, and we need to keep pushing that group, and we need to get right behind them. And whether they've been here, short term or long term, they're the present, and hopefully we want a lot of them to be the future. And it's about everyone in that dressing room, pushing as hard as they can for the club, and everyone involved with the club getting right behind them.
You said that recently, didn't you, that it's actually a chance for supporters to fall in love with another group of players, and that's exciting both for supporters and the players themselves.
Yeah, and I think, like Mark says, of course, it's been, and Ed said it's not a straight line, and the start of the season hasn't been a straight line, and it was probably never going to be. It really often isn't for teams coming down from the Premier League, and with our rate of change or the steepness of our ascent, then our rate of change has been much higher. So it's not been straight line, but I think the supporters are starting to feel it now. I'm not going to mention names because it's not fair, but you've seen some players and performances really improving. Some of the players were here last year, but now are really starting to settle and show their talent and what they can give to the club. Some players have arrived this year, maybe new to English football, new to the Championship, but are really starting to step in and grow into it. And I can see the supporters really starting to get behind them boys. And one thing I have to say is that everyone who has come here over the last few years, and I'll include the boys who've joined this summer, they're so appreciative and so in awe of the atmosphere in the stadium when it's at its best. And, walking around the pitch with, I would say, I won't say anything, but an Azor Matuisa or someone like that who's new to English football and new to the club, they can't believe the support home and away, and how nice the people are whenever they walk around Suffolk. Again, it's the type of club where you all live local, so they meet people. They always speak to me about how nice everyone is, how they feel the passion from everyone, how they feel that it's such a one club county. They can't believe the away support that travel in English football, and especially in this club. They can't believe the numbers, and when I tell them how far Middlesbrough is from Ipswich, and the fact that they've all made it there on a Friday night, they're so impressed, and they love playing at this stadium, and they're starting to really feel that love and fall in love with the club. So as you said, it's a two-way thing, and it's a special club, and I'd say to us, let's all keep pushing to make it that way. We all can contribute to that. We've all got a part to play, and for me, there's nothing more proud than when players come from different places and are, they really love how it is here, and they really want that to continue, and I think we can all play a big part in that.
Perhaps linking into that as well, with the number of players that have joined us, is during the busy periods, how often do you actually speak to Mark? This is a question that came in from email again, about how often you speak to Mark, and when there are board meetings held, what do they look like? Are they held in the US? Are they held in the UK?
Sure. So we have 4 board meetings a year. Usually 3 are in the UK, and 1 is often in the US. But in terms of how often I speak to Mark, there's rarely a day that goes by that we don't either speak or communicate via WhatsApp. And some days we speak multiple times a day, and it really depends. But we're very close. We have a great relationship, ownership, and myself and Mark. But really, it's more, while that may sound like a lot, that may sound like, oh my God, you're really in the business, looking at everything. And the reality is, we're really here to be supportive of the process, supportive of the plan, and a sounding board, and providing whatever necessary resources are needed for Mark and his team. But we really do have a great relationship, great confidence, and but there rarely is a day that goes by that we don't speak or correspond on WhatsApp.
Let's go back to the floor. There were lots of people with their hands up. Brandon, just a couple of rows in front.
Hello, it's Harrison. Just a question for Mark and Ed, really. So, me as a disabled supporter and enthusiast, my question to you both would be: in modern day stadiums, rightly so, you do see the uptake in changing places toilets, and for anybody that doesn't know, those are toilets that have access to often ceiling track hoists, which helps with disabled people in order for them to go to the toilet who can't quite sit on the toilet and go to the toilet via a change bed I know that that is something that's been talked about before, and I'm not asking for it to be put in place straight away, because I know there's, you know, infrastructure with pitches and what have you, but can you give us a time frame?
Hi, Harrison. Nice to see you. Did warn me you were going to give me a difficult question, didn't you? Listen, I think it's a point well made. I'm sure we'll talk about infrastructure projects at some point today. But as we build out and change the stadium, I'll give you my commitment today at the earliest possible opportunity. We'll make that happen. And you can hold me to that, Harrison.
Thank you, Harrison. Another question from the floor? Brandon, you've got someone behind you or in front. Yeah, plenty of options.
Hi lads, Elijah from Ipswich Town Fan Sport and Food Banks. It's a question for Ed and Mark about the independent football regulator that's coming into force at the end of this year. Obviously that means new requirements around fan engagement, governance, transparency around maybe ownership or investment. Just wondering what your thoughts on the regulator are widely, and also what have you had to do as a club to get yourself regulator ready? Thanks.
Great question. I'm looking at Luke now and he's watching every word I say. My own opinion on the regulator now is irrelevant because it's here. But I think what we have to do, made this very clear to the regulator, made it very clear to government, very clear to the EFL and the EPL. We must shape the regulator. Football has to manage football. The regulator's here. None of us quite know where that's going to drop and how the regulator is going to move forward. They keep telling us it will be a light touch. And I think there are some things that the regulator brings that will be good. I think this football club naturally does what it does. I think we are one of the most transparent clubs. We try and communicate. We don't get it right all the time. Ownership is very clear. I was talking to the governing bodies only last week, and they use our ownership as a blue chip example of how they like to see football clubs run. So I think, look, we will work with the regulator. We will help shape the regulator. But I also think football has a responsibility to get its own house in order. And for all of the points that you've just touched on, there are a number of good things that I think the regulator will bring, but we've just got to make sure that's a light touch, because this industry is very complex. I think the English Premier League is one of the biggest and best exports this country currently has. We need just to be careful. The Premier League, the Football League, the EFL, they are some of the shining lights that economically the country has, I think. So we need to make sure that we protect the game moving forward. I think I'm a passionate believer and we must protect the pyramid. But we'll work with the regulator to help shape what that light touch looks like.
Ed, would you have anything to add to that point?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, I really defer to Mark on specifics, but in terms of ownership, I mean, we believe in transparency. We believe we have a very blue chip group, including a major pension fund. So on one level, we're not as concerned about that type of thing, but obviously we're very mindful of the integrity of the game and the growth of the game. So I'll just carry on with Mark's comments. I don't have anything additional to add, really.
Thank you both. We'll go back to the floor. Still a few hands up. Brandon, just on your left there.
Thanks, Brandon. Evening, gents. Thanks for your time tonight. Message probably mainly to Kieran, but Mark and Ed, as fans, you may want to comment as well. Would we say, we're very lucky with the football that our club play, and thank you for Kieran for that, but would we say there's a bit of aggression in football going back to sort of long throws and set pieces being ever more important, and as Kieran alluded to earlier, with the time in play being so sort of down in recent years, and particularly the last season or two, it's not as great a product as it might have been previously for fans, and I know what sort of football I want to watch. Is there a comment, or can you elaborate more on that point I'm trying to make, Kieran?
No, I think it's pretty well said, and I think it is apparent, and it has been written and spoken about. Really, I think certainly in English football at the moment, you can see an emphasis on some different aspects. Certainly, set plays being one, but there's a bigger emphasis in the Premier League on physicality, on set plays. There's a few things in terms of man-to-man marking and details that are different. That means the game has been a little bit more broken, and ball in play time is significantly down at all levels of the game, and certainly is in our case. So look, I think it's twofold really. I think I share your passion for a certain type of football, and it's been one of my biggest passions since I've arrived at the club, of wanting this to be a brilliant place to come and watch football. It was one of the first things we spoke about as a group, is I want people to come here on a Saturday and get value for the ticket, and to go home hopefully having seen us win, but also having seen a great game of football and seeing a team that they can be proud of and a style of football that they can be proud of. And I want to continue with that, because I think it's really, really important. It's the history of our football club, and it's the future of our club. You also have to find ways to adapt and compete, and as the landscape changes, and I think the Championship this time round is different. If you look at the top 7 or 8, the last time we were in the Championship, ourselves, Leicester, Leeds, Southampton, Middlesbrough, Hull, West Brom, there were teams that were all playing a certain type of football. And at the moment, the division is different. And there's teams finding success in different ways. And of course, in football, everyone has a right to do it in their own way. So for me, it's about trying to, keep playing positive, attacking, open football where the ball's in play a lot and the supporters can enjoy watching us play a brave and exciting style of football. But also, you have to try and compete and beat what's in front of you. And, we're working really hard to combat those areas that the teams are focusing on more. We're also, of course, working really hard to improve ourselves on our set plays and in some of those aspects which are becoming more and more important in football. So we're working hard to really keep doing that. But yeah, I think you're right to say it's a trend. It's certainly the case in the Premier League as well. And we have to find a way to thrive in that while trying to keep the identity that, this club has had success with in the past, and we want to have success in the future with.
Another question from the floor, please. If anyone's... Brandon, just up here towards the front on your right.
This is possibly more for Mark, but Matt, before all 3 of you to answer. So I'm part of the disability team here, and I just wondered if you have any future plans with the Disability Foundation or any sort of outside of football here.
Dan's sitting here looking at me smiling from ear to ear, because the answer to that is always yes. We've seen the growth of the foundation over the last 3 or 4 years. I think circa 9,000 participants every single week now being affected through the football club positively in the use of the brand to motivate and engage people. Our disability activities sit at the core of that. I think the foundation goes from strength to strength. I think one of the key projects we want to really look at now is infrastructure for the foundation. We have a desire to find a permanent home for the foundation, which would mean facilities, training pitches, and a permanent place, so we can actually really go from strength to strength, and not only increase the work that we're doing at Portman Road, but also the outreach work. And in partnership with the local authority and all the agencies that we work with, I think that's something that we will look to do. But facilities and a home for the foundation are the next big key focus.
Thank you, Mark. We'll go back to the floor. Brandon, someone up here on your right.
Hiya, my name's Zach. Thank you all for being here. We've got a really exciting youth team. Our under-21s are doing really well in the sector Premier League 2. So a question for Kieran. Are there any that you're particularly excited about? And do you have much of a, do you meddle with the development at all? Do you have any pointers for them? Thank you.
Hi, Zach. No, I think you're right in terms of the under-21 group in particular are doing really, really well. So they're actually playing right now. So hopefully that's going well as well. The players are doing a really good job. John and his staff are doing a really good job. And there's some talented players in there, as Mark alluded to and Ed a little bit earlier. The academy has been an area that really has needed a renewed investment from where it's been over the last decade or so. And the step now to Category 1 will be a big, big positive for that. And there's a lot of investment and things that need to go on underneath that. You don't always see the fruits of the labour that straight away. To be honest, sometimes, and I've worked in academies for a long time, there's work that you do now that, you know, you won't see the fruits of for a decade. And that's one of the beautiful things about working in the academy, but it's also one of the challenges. So in terms of the group now, yeah, I think that typifies part of that journey. So you've got some boys who've been at the club right the way through, who are, you know, have a real passion for the club and have been here a long time. And then you've got players like Tudor Mendel, Santo Boniface, who've came to the club over the last 12 months and are doing really, really well. Talented boys who've been at other big clubs, and now they're with us, and we're happy to be working with them and think they could have bright futures. So that's probably two of the type who, you know, have been brought to the club and invested in pretty recently, and the club are working hard to put the right pathways in place for now. They're both doing excellent at under-21 football. The next step and the next discussion then really is always, when's the right time for possibly a loan move to go and get the first taste of senior football, or are they ready to make the step up to ours? And we assess that with, of course, Ben Chenery, who's here tonight, with the under-21s coaches, and we'll take them over to train with us, and we'll make judgments as a first-team staff as well. So there's a good group there in the under-21s. There's, I say, some talented boys in there who are performing really, really well. We want to make the right pathways for their careers to hopefully play for us in the future, but if not, to have really good careers, and we're making those decisions. And some of them will be, you know, seeing in action what pathways they take over the next 6-12 months. But as I said, there's some of the work that's going on now that, you know, won't be seeing the fruits of for quite a while. But I'm really happy that side of the club is being invested in. There's some really good people came into the building in the last few months, and I think it's moving in a good direction.
Ed, similar to what Kieran's saying about the football team, of course there can be changes in a football team, in a football club. But one of the questions from Facebook is actually talking about changes and additions to the board and the ownership. There have been some of those. Can any further changes be expected?
You know, it's really interesting. It's a really good question. There's always an evolution in the ownership group where certain investors and funds, they sometimes like to dial up their investments, and others want to dial down. But the one thing that I'm really proud of and excited about is that, you know, we have a group, core group of dedicated people that are here for the long term. They're here to stay. So you might see some shifts up or down, but in terms of the people that have been involved from the beginning, we're more dedicated now than ever. And really what we attribute it to is this incredible fan base. And I got to tell you that every time, you know, we come here and see the crowd and the enthusiasm, it just motivates us more and more. So it's something I just really wanted to make it a special point to thank the entire fan base for their incredible warmth and reception since day one we came here, and the enthusiasm. And you know, we couldn't be more positive about the future, but a lot of it is driven by the fans and how much support and love they've given us from day one.
And Ed, we would just for a second, just because the fan base has been incredible, but I think the fan base is also, and should understand and be extremely grateful as we are to the board and the investors, the money that they keep pumping in, allowing us to do our job. But I would like to take a second, because none of this happens. I'm not here, Kieran's not here, Ed's not here, without the insight, the thought, the imagination, the determination of one man, and that is Mark Steed from the pension fund. He had the insight to back this project when probably no one else would. A Phoenix, Arizona state pension fund investing in a UK Suffolk football club. Many said that was a crazy investment, but he saw the plan, he saw the future, he believed in us. And whilst he's extremely busy in what he does, I'd just like to say a personal thank you to Mark Steed, because without him, trust me, none of this happens.
That's very true. Well said.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ed. We'll go back to the floor again. You've got a few. One on your left there, Brandon.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name's Andrew. Ed, this is a question for you. In my opinion, one of the greatest things that you brought to this football club was Mark Ashton. When did you first decide that he was the man that was going to lead this project? Because he also recruited so many other great people for the club, both on the pitch and in the background.
All I can tell you is the moment that I met Mark Ashton, I literally looked aside and the other people in the room, and I said, I would want this guy to run any company I was involved in, not just a football club. And my feelings about it are even stronger now than they were that first day. So the moment that I met Mark, I knew he was our person. There was nobody else. And again, we have more confidence and enthusiasm for Mark today more than ever. And we're just amazed at the rocket ship that's been built. And please believe us, we are not even close to being finished.
If there's anyone else in Mark's family here who'd like to ask a question, then just put your hand up. Do you have any more cousins coming?
Mark, the spotlight is on you for a minute. I'll bring in a couple of questions from online.
Is that cousin Ned?
Yeah, right, that's right.
One from Facebook. Any update on a sponsor for the West Stand?
No, it's not really a focus for us at the moment. Andrew Wood has joined us as Chief Revenue Officer. He's here today. Joined us from IMG Singapore, 5 years at Citigroup. He is Australian, so he's looking forward to a good whooping in the Ashes. But no, Andrew's been brought in to work with the already really good people in the commercial team and the revenue streams to actually bring them together and look to drive global revenues, build a partnership with Ed Sheeran, leverage everything that we've got to really drive the revenues for the football club. But with regards to the West Stand, Tom Ball's leading on the project now to really look at the estate strategy for the football club. So rather than do something in isolation, we're looking at all of the property. We're looking at the practice pitch. We're looking at the car parks. We're looking at the cobble stand. We're looking at the space behind the cobble stand. We're working very closely with the local authority who've been really supportive at how we can really drive revenues. Because, look, from my perspective, I see the route map through to sustainable Premier League football. When we bought this football club, revenues were flat at around 16 million. Pre-player trading, I'm looking at Tom, we'd been around 160 million pounds worth of revenue last year. Revenues, even though we don't have the full broadcast money from the Premier League this season, will be really strong again. It'll be a record-breaking commercial year in the Championship again. So I understand what sustainable revenues in the Premier League need to look like to give Kieran the firepower in financial fair play to make sure we're competitive on the pitch. And to do that, we have to build out the stadium. We have to complete the training ground. We have to build out the stadium. And one of the things that I hope fans would appreciate, we spend hours and hours each year debating season ticket prices. And the feedback that we've had from fans again this season on the 10% rise that we did, that was really fair. And, I understand there are economic challenges in the country and we want to make sure that we deliver affordable football and pack out Portman Road. Because as Kieran said, I packed out Portman Road. Wherever we are signing players from, they're all saying the same thing. This place is something really, really special. So lots of work to do. But as you've seen with this ownership group, we're not afraid to deliver.
We'll go straight back to you because linking into revenue, of course, is retail. And this question from X is talking about the Umbro kit deal. How long is it lasting, basically? And is it going to be renewed or are we switching manufacturers?
We have another year in the current contract. Looking for Paul Macro. These kit designs have been done. They seem to get earlier and earlier each year. And again, that's a huge debate. But as we enter the last year with Umbro, as we do with any commercial deal, we will look at the market, we'll look at all the opportunities, and we'll see what is the best fit to take us forward. But Umbro have been really good partners for us. They may be with us even longer, but we'll look at the market, we'll explore the market over the next 12 months.
Right, we'll go back to the floor. We've got about 20 minutes left. Anyone else with a question from the floor, please? Just on your right there, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my name's Chris. Question for Kieran and probably Mark. We touched on the academy and the under-21s. I'm just curious to know whether there is such a thing as a scouting network these days. I go back to the 60s and 70s when we used to recruit a lot of players from the north, John Walk, Eric Gates and Alan Brazil. I could go on. Is there such a thing these days, or do we seem to pick them up from other clubs rather than have sort of bring them in as homegrown players? Luke Wolfenden being one, Cameron Humphreys perhaps the other, but there's very few. I just wondered, is there such a network still in place?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then you can elaborate on it. Yeah, there is, of course, and I think the priority for every football club, but especially in an area like this, is you want to have the best local talent or the best players from Suffolk as a bare minimum. So, of course, we want to keep tapping into that. And yeah, over the last few years, we've had Luke and Harry Clark as well, and Cameron Humphreys, Elkin Baggett, people like that around the group, and we want that to continue. In terms of scouting network on players like that, what I do think now is, compared to a time before, players are in academies and attached to clubs much earlier. So it's much harder, not impossible, but much harder to find a player who at a younger age is not attached to a big academy or a big club already, who's got the potential to come through. Not impossible, but much harder, because all the clubs in the Category 1 clubs, academies have really extensively gone into every corner and every nook and cranny of the country to find the best players. So it does become more challenging to find a good player that somebody else doesn't know about. I think even at a national level, yeah, everybody knows the good players more so. I think, technology, internet, scouting systems, data, there's less secrets. So it is getting harder and harder to find, I think in football, it's getting harder and harder to find a secret gem. We've managed to find a few over here the last few years, Massimo Luongo being one. It doesn't have to be young players, but a player who was released on a free contract by a couple of clubs and came here on a free transfer and went on to be an incredible player for the club. So, of course, you want the best local players. You want to find really good players that, you can get for low prices and that other people maybe don't know their value yet. That's always the ideal, but it does get harder and harder, certainly on a local and national level.
And I think the answer to your first question is, yes, there is a scouting network in place, but across all levels of the football club, we're looking to improve that. I think it's now widely known Mick Court has joined us from Manchester United as our Director of Recruitment, and I know, because I've seen his infrastructure plans, there'll be more people joining that group. We do use data, but we'd never sign just a player on data. It's a balance. It's a balance between the objective and the subjective. And I think one of the opportunities that we've got with the new training ground and with the talented coaches, with Kieran and his staff we have in the building, is you see a lot of the big Premier League clubs, warehouse players. So there's a lot of young talent at the big clubs who are going to find it really tough to break through. And if they look at a club like Ipswich, they see a pathway through. And the attraction here is the club, the coaches, the manager, the facilities, and an opportunity to play first-team football. So whilst we've still got to find the under-9 and under-10, we've got to recruit into the under-21s, into the underbelly, and we've got to recruit for the first team here and now. So right across the board, that's a big project for us, and we've got to have more resource in the building that can help us do that.
Linking into that, Mark, you actually said at a previous fans forum that we weren't going to move to Category 1 in the academy at that time. Why was the summer the right time? And we touched upon that when we spoke at the training ground last week.
Purely timing. When we took on the club, there was so much to do, and I'd rather get one or two areas right to start with. The big focus was always going to be Kieran and the first team, then the training ground. So once we'd got infrastructure correct, as in facilities, and as Kieran said, some really good people joined the club, some really talented people joined the club in that area, it was a natural time to apply for our licence. So in the summer, the academy team did an incredible job to get the provisional Cat 1 licence in the timescales they did. As you've just seen, the under-21s are flying high. And we're running around 6 months ahead of schedule to have that provisional licence converted to a permanent licence. And Dimitri, his team, Ben, his team, Luke, his team, everyone connected with that area deserves a lot of credit, because they've built it now at breakneck speed, but we're only right at the beginning.
I think it's important there as well, Mark. You mentioned a lot of names, and we have said that after the forum tonight, there are going to be some heads of departments, there are a few key members of staff that are about for 5 or 10 minutes. If you don't have a question that gets answered, please feel free to speak to us, because we're all open to asking those questions. We'll go back to the floor. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes left. Any more questions, please? Right at the front, Brandon, yeah?
We'll get him to you eventually.
Hi, my name's Ian. First of all, congratulations. We're now the pride of Anglia after 10 years. Just one question for Mark. As a fan, is there any way we could have a shareholding? So if you look at some clubs, the fans actually invest within the club, whether that's going towards building a new stand for the Premier League or whatever.
I think shareholding would be difficult. I think the level of investment now that's come into the football club has probably made that difficult. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be specific projects around, whether it's a stand development or a facility development or a community development. It's something that I think we continue to look at. But what I would say is, genuinely, the level of investment that these guys have put in is the envy of many. It's platinum plated money. It flows. It's never late. It's on time. It's on plan. And it's a hell of a lot of money that's come in, and is continuing to come in. You know, the training ground will be the best part of £40 million. That is a huge development. We haven't skimped on anything. The owners and the board, Sam Simon, Ed, Brett, Burke have all been really clear. The Viola family, who've got their own facilities in the Panthers. Mark, you put everything into that facility.
So we're cash rich.
I wouldn't say we're cash rich, because we burn it pretty quickly. This industry does that. But we have a budget. They hold us to the budget. If I want to spend outside of that budget, inside that budget, I'm free to run the football club against the plan. Anything outside that budget, I go to Ed as the major shareholder, and he signs that off. We have real robust process. We try and run this in a real robust professional manner. I see Abu's here, our finance director. We have a really robust finance team, and they make sure all our receipts and the pennies are counted.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing. You know, we talk about spending money, and I really look at it a little bit differently. And Tom Ball and I work very closely on some of the nomenclature, even, because we think, yes, you're calling it spending money, but we really look at it as investing. We're outlaying a lot of money. We look at an investment in this club and the opportunity we have here, building infrastructure, building facilities, because this whole investor base believes that this is going to be such a successful, and has been an incredibly successful project. So, you know, why is there so much money? It's because of all of us together really going in the direction, moving forward, not necessarily in a perfect straight line, but we all believe in the process, we believe in the product, and we really, really believe in where we're going. So it's a really exciting time.
Thank you for that. It's great being an Ipswich fan now.
Thank you.
Ed, we'll go back to you. One of the questions again from social media. I'm surprised that no one tonight has asked this, but someone has asked, will the board be supportive in the January transfer window?
Well, all I can tell you is this. Every transfer window that we've had, I probably talk to Mark 3 or 4 times a day and ask, is there anything else we can do? And Luke. And I know he's working closely with Kieran on different strategies, and I can just assure you that within the rules of financial fair play, there's always resources to do whatever we need to do to improve the club, but also not upset the balance. So we don't always want to do too much, because you don't want to make too many changes and upset the balance. So between, you know, my comments and constant phone calls to Mark, and I'm sure he and Luke and Kieran, they're all, and the whole group are going back and forth. But the simple answer to the question is yes, there will be sufficient resources to do whatever we need to do in January.
Kieran, I think a good time to bring you this question that we received on email as well. This supporter has highlighted that we have 7 games in the next 22 days starting Saturday, followed by 4 games over 15 days during the Christmas and New Year period. How important is squad depth during that time, and perhaps a continued amount of rotation?
Very important. 4 games over 9 days at Christmas, I think. So yeah, it's a deep squad is really, really important in the Championship. Yeah, a 46 game season is unique. I'm not sure of if there's another league that have that many league games with the international breaks, they end up really condensed. And we believe that it's something hopefully that will make us successful over the course of the season. Of course, we're not the only team with a deep squad. Everyone now, carries good numbers, and with the 5 substitute rule, it's become even more important and is becoming more and more important in modern football. But I think we have a like for like depth in so many positions that can be an advantage to us over the course of a season. So we're going to have to utilize them all. I know it can be a talking point amongst supporters whenever there's changes to a team. I understand that. I'll always do and stick to what I think's right for the group. We've had to integrate a lot of new players this summer, and there's a process to getting those players up to speed, and part of that process is they have to play minutes. We're getting towards a point now where we feel like more of the squad are up to match fitness, having not been with us in pre-season. The bonds in the group are getting stronger. There's still a long way to go, but are getting stronger, and I genuinely trust everyone in that group to play a part in hopefully a successful season. So yeah, we've got a lot of games between now and Portsmouth on the 4th of January, and a healthy and big group will hopefully be a part of that.
Thank you, Kieran. Right, we have just shy of 10 minutes left. Are there any more questions from the floor, please? Got one more at the back, Brandon, perhaps. I can't see behind the TV screen there, maybe 2.
Down back what you were speaking about, binning blazing and stuff. I don't have 2 in one here. The first thing is, how do you speak to players when obviously letting them go either on a loan, transfer, or binning them in? And the second thing is, when players are out on loan, do you keep an eye on how well they're doing?
Yeah, I think the first question in terms of how we speak to players coming in or leaving, it's always honest communication certainly with me. That's how I try and operate. I always try and be really honest with the players, those in the building, to let them know where I see them in the group, how their season is likely to be. Of course, in the end, players decide by their performances pick themselves or not on any given week, but I'll always try and be really honest with them. I've said all along, and I think we've tried to live by it, I'll always try and find a balance between what's right for the club, what's right for the team, and what's right for the individual player's career, because I think if you stick to that, your reputation within players, it stands to you as a football club, and you become an attractive place for players to come. If you go against that and you do things that are not, helpful to a player's career, it won't take long before that will catch up with you as a club. And I think we've always tried to do what's right for players at the football club. We've tried to build a really strong squad here at whatever level we've been in. I think we certainly have done that this year. And the base for that is always honest communication. The same when players come in the building, to be honest. If players are arriving, I'll always try and give them a really clear steer on how I see their role, how they fit into the group, who they'll be playing with, who they'll be competing with to get in the team. And I think, again, when you try and have that honesty and that integrity to your relationships, I think it is a big part of becoming an attractive place for players to come and play. And I think we have really become that, and it's a real positive. We are a club that players want to come and play for. So that honest communication is really important. In terms of players on loan, of course, we keep in contact with them. We watch their games. We watch their games live. We watch the video. I'll keep in contact with them personally sometimes. Other staff members that keep in contact with them. We have a loans manager who goes to visit them at their clubs and watches training and keeps in contact with them. So it's very important. Of course, different loans. Some are young players going out for experience. Some are players going out who we think will come back and play for us again. And some loans are for players who we think it's the best thing for their career. So there's all different categories, but we certainly always try and be honest about it. And we communicate a lot with them before they go and also when they're on loan.
Thank you, Kieran. Any more questions from the floor? Just there, Brandon, yep.
Evening, gents. Thanks for your time tonight. My name is Dean. Mark, Kieran, the transfer of Nunes from Norwich City, I know there has been transfers in the past, but probably not for a generation. How did that come about?
He's in your head. careful what I say.
Yeah.
Again, Luke's looking at me with his eyes closed, thinking, "Be careful." No, look, I think again, like any other player, he's a player that came through through the process. We made an approach. I must admit, when we first discussed it, I think my reaction was we won't get him. I'll be honest, it was the other way around. I wouldn't have sold to them. I just think it would have been too noisy, and I think it would have caused us problems. But the other way around, for whatever reason, they made the decision to do that deal. I think we paid good market price, and I think we've acquired a very talented young man who's absolutely buzzing to be here.
Yeah, I reiterate that. No, look, the boring answer for me is it's, it wasn't about what club you're signing him from. It's about trying to bring a player to the club who we think would fit. Of course, you know that it's going to be a little bit noisy for the transfer that it was. But I think he's dealt with that really well. I think, as Mark says, he's certainly enjoying himself. It takes some bravery to make the move, but he's determined to do what's best for his career. And again, it's great that he felt that coming to Ipswich was the best thing for his career, the best chance for him to develop, improve, play in a good team at a brilliant club, and hopefully play Premier League football in his time at the club. So I think it's brilliant that he saw this is the place he wanted to do that.
Thank you, Kieran. I think we've got time for probably 2 more questions. We'll take one just online, Mark, that was directed for you from Facebook, discussing the plans in the development of the Cobbold stand. Is there a time frame on that yet?
No, there isn't. I think that we've put so much time, effort, resource into the training ground. I think fans may have seen the video that we put out last week, trying to give people an update on what we were doing. We're actually going to do part 2 of that on Friday this week to go out next week and update supporters on what we're doing at Portman Road. So we have. Tom will probably tell me we've got more detail than this, but we've done a lot of bulk and scale work on capacity, space we would need. We have an agreement with the local authority to go to the back of Portman Road so we can extend the base of the stand out. We can then cantilever further. I think one thing's for sure, it will be a big stand. It's going to need a big stand, but again, Tom's going to lead on that project on what goes into the stand. The stand it's going to house 20 plus games a season here at Portman Road. It's got to operate commercially 365 days a year. It's got to drive revenue, because again, to be a sustainable Premier League football club, to look at what the levels of your Brightons, your Aston Villas have done, we have to drive revenues. So we've got to look at revenues outside the normal running of a football club. That stand will need to facilitate that. And again, but what you have to do is you've got to come up with a master plan for the stadium on how everything flows. And I think, look, we're looking at some really exciting projects in and around Portman Road. And if we get the majority of them away, let alone all of them, we will create something quite special.
Thank you, Mark. Right, we'll go to the floor if anyone does have one final question. Just there on your left, Brandon, yep.
Hi, Chris here. Question for Kieran. Obviously, with the squad we've got and the depth, how do you keep the players' heads level when they need to come into the team? Particularly, I guess, with Jack Clark, who's done really well lately, despite being ousted a little bit by Philogene. Sorry, a bit harsh, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, look, it's of course one of the challenges of the job. If you bring in, talented players and more than one in each position, then both players are going to want to start. But that's how we decided to build a squad, because that's what we thought would give us the best chance over the course of the season, is to have 2 players competing for each position. And yeah, there's different bits to it. There's natural selection in terms of, players have to perform. I think that's healthy for a group. There's to a certain extent, once you've had your opportunities, you have to step up and perform to the team to keep earning your minutes. There's the rotation bit of 46 games, and we're going to need different people to start at different times, especially in the busy spells of the season that we have coming up. There's the impact of substitutes off the bench, which is absolutely key to a successful season now in any league, but especially in the Championship. If you want to finish in the top positions, you have to have the most goals off the bench. That's it. And the 2 promotions that we've had in this club, we were amongst the top goal scorers in Europe off the bench, and we want to be there again this year. So that's a big element to it. And then again, you just try and be honest, communicate all these things with the players. before they arrive, when they arrive, let them know that, you know, they're all going to be important over the course of it. And I think ultimately the team success has to go above individual success. We always say to them, if the team wins, everyone wins. You almost can't have a bad season in a promotion winning season. Everyone's career, everyone's memories, everyone's families, it's a positive impact on everyone. So I think it's ultimately everyone buying into the collective goal, everyone buying into the team ethos, and if we can drive that, it will help us win games. And if the team wins over the course of it, then, you know, the players all progress and win in their careers. So the players are buying into that well, and probably Jack's a good example, as you say, of a really talented player who's really improving, I think, at the club, to be honest. Already a talented player when he arrived, but I think he's made big steps. Is really buying into the team ethos and is having a good impact when he starts and when he comes off the bench, and that's exactly what we need in the group.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ed, of course, for forming the panel this evening. That does conclude the forum. As I say, there will be some staff members sticking around for 5 or 10 minutes. If you didn't get to ask your question, please do ask one of us. Who'll be about for a little while. Thank you for coming. Thank you to those who tuned in online, watched on Town TV. Hopefully it's been beneficial and enjoyable. We'll see you back here on Saturday for the visit of Wrexham, and hopefully now we can go and watch Scotland qualify for the World Cup.